Have you ever been standing quietly, maybe in your own garden or near an open window, when you suddenly felt it, the gentle weight of a bird's gaze settling on you, not skittish or fleeting, but steady, like it was seeing something just beneath your skin? It's a strange moment. The world goes soft, and for a heartbeat, it feels less like being watched by a tiny creature and more like being recognized by an old friend. Most people brush that feeling aside. They tell themselves it's imagination, a trick of the light, a bird simply scanning for danger. But what if there's more to it than that? What if, in that quiet exchange, the bird is seeing things we've long forgotten how to notice, colors we can't name, movements we overlook, even emotions we think we're hiding? What if birds live in a world far richer than ours, a secret world layered right on top of this one, invisible to us, but completely real to them?
Welcome to the Bird Insight.
I'm glad you're here. Let's begin with something almost too beautiful to believe. When you look at a sparrow or a blackbird, you see soft browns and muted tones, lovely but ordinary. A bird, however, sees something entirely different. Their eyes can perceive ultraviolet light, a part of the spectrum completely hidden from human vision. Where we see a plain feathered companion, another bird sees intricate patterns glowing like hidden constellations, secret signals of health, identity, and intention painted across every plume. A male blue tit, to our eyes, is a charming splash of blue and yellow. To another blue tit, his crown shimmers with an ultraviolet brilliance that announces his vitality, like a quiet song made of light. What we dismiss as a simple little bird is actually a walking galaxy, broadcasting messages we aren't equipped to receive. And it's not just their own kind they see differently. The very landscape we share looks altered through their eyes. Ripe berries don't just appear red or purple, they reflect ultraviolet signatures, making them glow against the leaves like tiny beacons. A trail of insects, invisible to us, becomes a shimmering path of light. The world, through a bird's perception, is far more luminous and information-rich than we could ever imagine. But the hidden layers go deeper than light. Some birds navigate vast oceans and continents using a sense we can barely comprehend, the ability to detect the Earth's magnetic field. It's as if they carry an inner compass made of something between instinct and starlight. Robins have molecules in their eyes that might actually allow them to see magnetic field lines as faint patterns overlaid onto their vision, a subtle grid guiding them south when winter whispers. A godwit taking off from muddy shores in Alaska and flying for 8 days without rest to reach New Zealand isn't just flying blind. She is tracing invisible highways that have existed long before any human drew a map. Think about that the next time you see a bird tilt its head, staring not just at the ground, but through the world itself, sensing layers of direction we've replaced with little glowing screens. There's something deeply humbling in this. All around us, as we go about our hurried days, these creatures are interacting with dimensions of reality we didn't even know existed until very recently. They aren't simple, they're simply attuned to a different truth.
And this sensitivity extends far beyond physical senses. If you spent enough time watching birds, you may have noticed something that feels almost uncanny: their ability to read you, to pick up on your mood before you've taken a conscious step. Think about the crows in your neighborhood. They don't just see a generic human walking past, they recognize individual faces. Studies have shown that crows can remember a person who seemed dangerous, even years later, and will communicate that knowledge to their offspring, creating a kind of inherited caution. But what's more moving is the flip side. They also remember a kind face, a gentle voice, the person who leaves out fresh water on a hot afternoon. If you've ever formed a quiet ritual with a bird, leaving a few unsalted peanuts on the same railing each morning, you might have felt the moment when watching turned into waiting, when fear softened into something resembling trust. That trust is real. You have been seen, catalogued, and accepted into the bird's complex map of who belongs and who doesn't. Birds notice the rhythm of your day, the way you pause before you pour the seed, the exact sound of your footsteps on gravel. That little robin who appears when you dig in the garden isn't just randomly turning up. She has been watching you from a high branch, learning the pattern of your spade, the smell of freshly turned soil, the promise of easy worms. To her, you are not an intruder. You are a part of the landscape, a reliable event like dawn or rainfall. And there is something almost sacred in being accepted as just another element of the natural world, not separate from it, but woven in. Maybe you've even experienced something more intimate. Perhaps there was a moment when a bird came unusually close and simply stayed, not begging, not aggressive, just present. A wild sparrow landing beside your coffee cup on a quiet balcony, tilting its head and meeting your eyes for a long, slow second. When that happens, your breath catches without permission. Something in your chest remembers a kind of ancient language that doesn't need words. It feels less like an animal encounter and more like a quiet acknowledgement, a brief agreement between two consciousnesses that, for all their differences, are both alive under the same sun. This is where the science gives way gently to something harder to measure, but no less real. For centuries, birds have appeared in human stories as messengers, omens, and symbols of the soul. We sense intuitively that they occupy a space between earth and sky, between the known and the mysterious. But perhaps the deeper truth is that they bridge something inside us, the part that is still wild, still attuned to subtle shifts in the atmosphere, still capable of feeling wonder without needing to explain it.
When a bird watches you, it is perceiving not just your shape, but your nature. Are you moving with tension, your shoulders tight, your steps rushed and heavy? They notice. A nervous human reads as a potential threat. The birds will scatter before you even realize your own anxiety. Conversely, when you sit with open hands and a slowed breath, something shifts. The birds stay. They might even inch closer, drawn not by food, but by the absence of threat, by the quiet presence that says, "You are safe here." In that exchange, the bird becomes a mirror. It reflects back the energy you're carrying, often long before you've acknowledged it yourself. To be seen so honestly can be unsettling. It can also be deeply healing. Consider the moments that feel like coincidence. You're thinking about someone you've lost, and a single feather drifts down in front of you. You're questioning a decision, and a bird bursts into sudden song, breaking your spiral of thought. Are these just random neural firings in a stressed brain, desperately seeking meaning? Maybe, but maybe not entirely. Because if birds can perceive magnetic fields and ultraviolet patterns and the micro-expressions on our faces, who's to say they don't sense something about our emotional presence as well? The heavy stillness of grief, the light fizz of joy, the quiet static of loneliness. What if they are not drawn to us by breadcrumbs alone, but by something they see emanating from our very being? Something we've lost the ability to sense in ourselves. There is a particular pigeon who sits on my windowsill some afternoons, not every day, just some days.
I started noticing her after a long, difficult winter when I felt particularly invisible. She'd arrive, cooing low, her iridescent neck catching the pale light, and she'd simply rest there, facing inward, eyes soft. At first I thought it was shelter, but over time I noticed she came most often on the days I was struggling silently, the days my heart felt heavy. Was she responding to some change in my posture, my stillness, the sadder quality of my breath? Or was it something else entirely, something beyond what I can logically trace? I'll never know, but I chose to accept it as a small gift, a quiet visitation, and maybe that choice is the whole point. This is the secret world of birds, not a hidden kingdom in some remote jungle, but right here, layered over your own life like gauze. They are watching far more than we realize. They see a world shimmering with ultraviolet symphonies, threaded with invisible geomagnetic pathways, humming with the subtle music of human emotion. And in their ancient, instinctive way, they sometimes choose to draw close to us, not out of dependence, but out of a curiosity that mirrors our own.
We spend so much time looking at birds, identifying them, photographing them, studying their migration routes and population counts. But how often do we stop to wonder what they are seeing when they look back at us? What do they make of these tall, clumsy creatures who have forgotten how to hear the earth's quiet hum, who rush through days without noticing the glow on a berry or the pull of magnetic north? Maybe when a bird gazes at you with that strange, steady calm, it's feeling a kind of gentle pity mixed with hope. Maybe it's asking silently, "You once knew all of this too. Do you remember?" Sometimes, late in the evening, when the light turns gold and the birds settle into their roosts, I sit near an open window and listen to the final calls of the day. There's a peacefulness that settles over the trees, a kind of whispered agreement that the world will keep turning, that morning will come again. In those moments, I feel less like an observer and more like a part of the flock, huddled into the quiet, seen by creatures who don't ask me to explain myself. And I realize that the secret world of birds isn't really about ultraviolet feathers or magnetic sight, beautiful as those things are. It's about connection. It's about remembering that we are still animals, still part of the wild web, still capable of being truly seen, not for our achievements or our worries, but for our simple presence. Maybe you've experienced something like this. Perhaps a bird has looked at you a little longer than necessary, or visited during a moment of quiet sadness, or simply let you stand close without fear. If you have, then you've already stepped into that secret world. You've been acknowledged by a creature whose reality is more layered and luminous than our own, and you were allowed to stay. I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever felt that a bird truly saw you, not just as part of the scenery, but as you? Share it gently in the comments. This is a quiet space, and every story is welcome here. Until next time, walk softly. The birds are already watching, and they see so much more than we know.